Hello and welcome to the Doctor's Corner. I'm your host as always, Dr. Mark Pinsky, and today we have a very special show for you, spirituality in medicine. And to help me with that very endearing but complicated, I think, topic is Father Blake Britton from St. Mary's. Father, welcome.
Thank you so much.
It is really an honor to have you here. We have covered this topic before, but never with a priest. So you're the first priest to do this topic. We actually did it a couple years ago with my rabbi, and I think it's fascinating to get a little different perspective. So if you could do me a favor and give our audience a little bit about your background and how you came to Brevard County and what you're currently doing, that would be great.
Absolutely. Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for having me. My name's Father Blake Britton, as he mentioned, and I'm the parochial vicar. What that pretty much means is assistant pastor at St. Mary Catholic Church and School, which is in the city of Rockledge. It's the oldest Catholic church in Brevard County, has a lot of history, a lot of connection with the wider community. And so I've been there now for a little over a year, so almost 2 years in 2020. And a couple of things I do there, besides the basic ministry of a priest, so Mass, confessions, sacraments, anointings. We have 2 hospitals that we oversee, 4 nursing homes and hospice centers. We also chaplain at the local high school, which is Melbourne Central Catholic High School. And then I also help hear confessions and do ministry at the Brevard County Jail. So there's a lot of things that we do in that parish community. We're also blessed to have a school, thank God. Yep. And I'm a teacher of philosophy and humanities at that school as well.
That's awesome.
And so it's always great being with the kids and being able to teach them.
It keeps you a little humble, I think.
Oh, it does. The kids are so brutally
you.
honest.
Yeah,
they do.
yeah.
But, especially I teach middle school. So it's amazing to me to see how inquisitive and how insightful these middle schoolers are and the kind of questions that they're asking. Right. They're not superficial questions. They're very deep existential questions. So it's impressive.
Excellent. I think that's a good roundout. So let's talk about, why should people even become religious, or why should they even engage in any type of faith at all?
Right. Well, we know that there are 3 aspects of the human person. So we have the somatic, the psychic, and the pneumatic. And just to explain those real briefly, the somatic is that physical part, right? That's where you deal a lot with, doctor. Mm-hmm. Then you have the psychic, which is the study of psychiatry, psychoanalytical philosophies. And then you have the pneumatic. That comes from the Greek word pneuma, which means of the soul. The pneumatic aspect of the person is that spiritual center that every human being has. Whether they recognize it or conscious of it or not, they have it. It's fascinating because if you even go back to Homo sapien from his very beginnings, and you were to see what evidence do we have of what ancient man and woman were like, you won't find clubs, and you won't find loincloths like they do in cartoons. What you will find are ritual drawings of religious activity. What you will find is that this ancient people, and then of course developing throughout the ancient civilization, starting with the Egyptians, which were the most fascinating probably in the ancient world, and everyone wanted to be them, from the Romans to the Greeks, what you find is that this need for spirituality, this need to ask ourselves and to really dive into the deeper questions of our existence as our consciousness as human persons, this is something that's been with us from the beginning. And it's something that's very relevant. I think that one of the reasons why we have such high rates even nowadays of depression, particularly among my generation, I'm a millennial. Right. So, you have high rates of depression, anxiety. You have all these sorts of difficulties and struggles psychologically, somatically, but also really spiritually, is because there's a lacuna, there's an emptiness there of the spiritual center.
And I totally agree with that. As a matter of fact, little known fact, I did my residency in Louisville, Kentucky. But what is not known, a lot of people know that, but what they don't know is I actually got in big trouble during my residency for discussing spirituality. Now, you would think that the Bible Belt, so to speak, that would be a very reasonable thing to do.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, some of the physicians were actually ministers. So you would think that this would be okay.
Right.
And I would really discuss with patients, particularly not so much in clinic, but when they were in the hospital, to tap into your spiritual side because it will help with your healing.
Yeah.
So let's just tap into that.
Okay,
let's talk a little bit about spirituality and how that can actually help with your old physical healing.
Yeah. One of my favorite things to study is the origin of words. I love etymology. And if you look at the word health, the original Latin word, this is where we get our word sanitary from, is sanus. Coincidentally, that Latin word sanus is also tied to the word sanctus, same origin, which means holy. In other words, in the ancient mind, particularly the ancient Roman mind and Greco-Roman mind, there was a direct correlation between sanus, health, and sanctus, holiness.
Love it.
And these two things cooperate coincidentally together in the human person. Again, just actualizing that holistic approach to medicine and to healing. So this is something that has been present in the human species, been present in our mind always. It's, of course, been even more highly particularized after the modern revolution, which took place around the 16th century in the professional study of medicine as it's known nowadays. And so, yeah, there's a direct connection here between holiness and healthiness. And that's something that's really important, I think, and I'm happy to hear that you discuss that with your patients, for them to tap into that. And it's not to push or promote any particular religion or practice. What it is in the end is this realizing that this part of you exists.
Right.
It's there, and if you don't minister to that in some way, if you don't help oversee that in some way, then there's going to be negative ramifications, just like if you don't drink water. You know?
And I think that is a wonderful, wonderful summation, because I do still talk to the patients about that now. And I tell them this, if you tap in to your inner spirit, whatever that means to you, as long as obviously it doesn't preach hate and it doesn't have any of those evils to it, it only has positivity to it.
Yeah.
So it's going to help you in all different realms. Yeah. So health for me, really, you're helping me, because if I can get those people to tap into that side, and I tell my patients on a regular basis, you need to do this all the time. Now it's become in vogue to meditate, right?
Right.
Well,
right.
Your people have been meditating. My people have been meditating forever,
Millennia.
Right. So that's not this weird oddity, if you will. It's been a part of our life forever. When you pray, when you sit and you zone in into the Father, that's your way of tapping into your spiritual side.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell them. You have to do this. It's going to bring positivity to you.
Absolutely. And it's beautiful because my brother's actually in medical school. So he's in his third year of medical school right now. And him and I, after he graduates from medical school and gets his practice, we're going to join something that exists in the Catholic Church called the Holy Alliance. So what this is actually a national co-op of medical professionals and Catholic priests and other ministers. And what they do is they practice the field of medicine and religiosity and together in tandem.
I love it.
And so it's a wonderful thing, as I was speaking to my brother about it, because he mentioned, he's like, I'll heal the body, you heal the soul, But you have to be able to tap into both of these aspects. And you're right, there has been, particularly in the West, it's been fascinating to me. So I'm a philosopher by trade. That was my original study, my original degree. It's been amazing for me to see the development of ideas, particularly in the past 67 years or so, that there's been a huge increase in this new age kind of spirituality, like you said, yoga, meditation, these things are in vogue right now. And that really is the deeper yearning of our Western culture, which has become increasingly secular, so increasingly anti and irreligious.
I agree.
That has to be compensated for. And the way that's compensated for is by this sort of new age spirituality that's popping up.
I think that is a brilliant way to look at it, because I think people are lost.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in this age that we live in of crazy politics and world just animosity and all of these negative things, really religion done the right way, or spirituality done the right way, will bring people, I think, whole. And I've tried to explain that many, many times.
Even the word religion, religio, means to tie in, to bring together. So just that notion of a religion that is not based, or any sort of religious sentiment is a better way to put it, any religious sentiment that is not based in that desire to unify and to bring together is not something that's going to be healthy for the human person.
Right. And it won't last.
It won't last.
It's not a long-lasting thing.
Yeah.
So speaking about not a long-lasting thing, I'm sure that this time of the year, everybody becomes holy.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Everybody realizes, oh my goodness, I need to tap into that side.
Grandma wants me to go to church.
That grandma's telling me I have to go to church.
Right.
I'm not really sure I want to go to church. How do you approach people who aren't necessarily tapped in? Yeah. What is your message to those people? Because, listen, in Judaism, same thing, right? There are certain days of the year people go to synagogue, they don't go.
Right.
That's it. They'll tap in Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, then they're done.
Right.
Right? Christmas
and Easter.
And
Easter
Easter.
Catholics, we
Right.
call them. Easter Catholics.
so it's the same.
Yeah.
And how do you get those people to try to tap in to their own spirituality, to get them to understand, you need to be here to glean all of your spirituality?
I deal a lot with this topic within counseling. And what I always do is I draw people back to their immediate desires and experience. That's always the place to start, is self-knowledge. This is something from Socrates. An unreflected life is not worth living, right? This is also in the cave of Delphi, when the ancient Greeks used to go to try to find wisdom from the oracle of Delphi. Above the cave was inscribed in Greek, know thyself, right? This was the greatest thing to know. A lot of people don't know their selves nowadays, meaning their deepest interior self. So what I always do is I try to lead them in a reflection of self-guidance and self-understanding. So when you went to that Christmas Mass, when you went to the synagogue during that day, when you went to your church service or you went to the temple, what did you feel here? And how does that compare to your typical daily experience? And 100% of the time, I'm not exaggerating, 100% of the time it has been, Father, I felt better at church. I felt lighter. I felt like life was worth living. I felt that I had a purpose for living, and all these things are very important to the human person. Again, purpose, right? Erik Erikson's basic hierarchy of needs, but purpose is in there.
Yes.
Purpose is in there. A need for life, a need for existence. So typically what I do is I have them compare that experience. So for any of our listeners here, I would invite you to go to wherever your religious place of worship is and to really go there and gauge, how do I feel when I'm here in comparison to when I'm not? And that is your soul, that's your human heart, that's your psyche, your psyche, speaking to you and saying, this is something that I need. This is something that I need for health and for wholeness.
Well, it's interesting because my girlfriend's devoutly Catholic.
Lucky you.
She goes to
That's awesome.
She goes to Ascension.
I love because between the two of you, Judaism and Catholicism, you have over 9,000 years of history there.
Right. Well, it's very fascinating, right? On how our relationship has just grown and worked, and it really is tremendous. And so when I go to Mass on Christmas Eve, it's interesting because I do tap into my inner feelings, and I have the same feelings as when I'm in my synagogue, right? I have this peace about me. I have this comfort about me. And, I like to watch. I'm a people watcher. So I can feel the people that are really feeling and the people who are just there because, Grandma told them to come.
Right.
But I really do encourage all of you to tap in to that inner part of you that may be missing something, that may need something in your life. Because after all, I do a ton in that room in terms of counseling with people. But so much of it is exactly what you said, Father. They're devoid of any type of meaning. Yeah. And you have to tap into the meaning in order to have any quality of life.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Makes total sense. So how do you get them then after that to want to come, to want to do the things and tap into your faith?
Right.
They're there. They're in your congregation right now. They're sitting there. How do you get them to really want to tap into their faith?
Yeah, so there are three basic needs that I always identify. All of us have it, myself included. Community, identity, mission. Right? These are the three things that all of our hearts desire. So first and foremost, identity. Who am I? Who am I? Why am I here? Why do I exist? What's my reason for being? So what I do is I'll make a personal connection with them at the liturgy. So for us, we call it the Mass. So after the Mass, I'll make a personal connection with people I haven't seen. Maybe I saw them last year during this time, like, hey, how have you been? Missing you in church. Drop little hints here and there. But then I also give a personal invitation to come speak with me. Did you enjoy today's service? You enjoyed today's Holy Mass? Yeah, Father, it really touched me what you said, or the song that was sung, or the decorations, because especially in the Catholic Mass, we go, really, we decor.
It's the best.
It's beautiful.
It's so beautiful. Yeah.
And we use the incense, and there's so many sensorial experiences in the Catholic liturgy, and the same thing with the Jewish liturgy, when you also have your incense, the recitation, the touching of the Torah, all these sacred things that happen in the synagogue. Right. And so that was the first thing I always do is, hey, why don't you come talk to me about that experience? Right. And we could see what touched you there. That helps them understand their identity. Community. People want to be in a community. Absolutely. No one's a lone ranger in the end.
Absolutely.
So connect them and saying, you have a family here. There's people here who legitimately care for you, and I'm one of them. Allow me to make this part of your extended family. And then finally, mission. You, every single human being, has a reason for being. There's no one whose life is worthless, or there's no one whose life is listless. It all has a reason. So allow me to help you find that.
I absolutely love that. I've said that forever, right? So I think that the difference between, and trust me, I've been in many, many services, right? I've been in almost every faith you can think of as a religion minor, as I shared with you in college. That was a part of what we did, right? But I can honestly tell you that the most successful parishes, the most successful congregations are those where the preacher touches the congregants. And not just verbiage on the pulpit, but that personal touch. They miss it in this day and age of dysfunction, Father. In this day and age where, unfortunately, kids don't know their parents, which is so sad. And there's so many families that are divided. They don't have any guidance. So you might be that only person. And the fact that you recognize that is so spectacular. And maybe it has to do with that you're this millennial who recognizes the dysfunction that's out there, and some of the older
and
don't.
that I myself has experienced. You know, as part of that generation, I suffer, if you will, the wounds of my own generation personally. So I know what it's like to be sort of floundering about at 20, 25, wondering, what am I going to do? You know, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. I have this degree, you know. So religion, my Catholic faith, and now obviously I'm a priest, so it's even deeper. But originally it was my Catholic faith that rooted me in reality, helped me to get a proper, healthy gauging of myself. And so you mentioned extending that beyond the Christmas season, you know, and that is something that I think needs to be done, because the good news is that wonderful feeling that you get, you don't have to get it once a year. You can have it every day of the year, you know, by plugging yourself into your local religious community and getting tapped into that.
I couldn't have said it any better, Father. I mean, really a wonderful, wonderful, I think, summation about what I try to do in my room. I'm sure you try to do it in your congregation, but I don't think a lot of people really understand. This is, to be a priest, is a total dedication of life. So you have my just deepest. I'm trying to figure the word, but I can't think of the word. But my respect for sure. But I just really appreciate your wisdom today. It was just very, very poignant on your topics and how you address that. Is there any final message that you might want to relay to whoever's out there that might need you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first thing is the doors of St. Mary Catholic Church and School are open for you. 1136 Seminole Drive, Rockledge, Florida. Come on down anytime. If you need, doesn't matter if you're Catholic or not, all are welcome. And if you need anywhere where you need to find a place of comfort and strength, you have an amazing doctor here, obviously, who provides that for you, but allow us also to serve you in that way. And also want to thank you. I really do want to thank you for your profession. Again, with my brother being in medical school now, I get a little bit more of an appreciation and an insight to how devoted this life is as well. You know, we were joking before the show started that him and I are both on call 24/7.
That's right.
So sometimes I get calls at 2 a.m. to go down to the hospital or, you know, to go minister to someone at their home who's suffering, and you get the same thing, I know. So thank you also for your dedication, and just to our audience, just know that we're here for you, and I do strongly encourage you, beyond just the Christmas season, to really get plugged into your local religious community and to allow the Lord to really speak to your heart in that way.
Tremendous. Just let me say that, you know, I only got to meet you for a very short period of time, but I love listening to you. I think you are amazing at just not just a person. I can tell from how the thousands of people that I speak to, you're just a good human.
Thank you.
And that is a very rare commodity in this life. So I appreciate you taking your time. I know you're very, very busy, especially this time of the year.
Yes.
All crises happen this time of the year.
Right.
So I truly appreciate you allowing my audience and myself to share in your wisdom and to really comfort those out there, to let them know that you're available for them. It's a very, very special thing.
Of course.
I really do. For Father Blake Britton, I am Dr. Mark Pinsky. You have been watching The Doctor's Corner.